Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and today I'm unpacking my VCR memories. We're not focused exclusively on VHS as a format or a technology or the video rental store necessarily as an experience. We're just talking about my memories involving the machine, the VCR, the video cassette recorder. So I want to make that distinction because this is going to sound redundant and repetitive in relation to other videos I've already done. But I wrote this one down a long time ago before I did some of those other videos, and I've held it off for this long because I wanted to make sure I wasn't redundant. So, we're not talking about VHS or Betamax as a whole. We're just talking about my personal VCR memories. So I was born in 1982, which means 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. You would assume my memories of the VCR start around 87, 86, 87, 4 or 5 years old, right? Getting ready for kindergarten, you would assume by this point in my life, my memories are starting to stick around. I would have memories of the VCR in our house at this point. And I can talk about my first VHS cassette, etc. But we were a poor family. Your assumption would be wrong. And here's why. People forget this, especially modern people, younger kids, Zoomers, Gen X, not Gen X, Gen Z, or whatever. I don't know. Generations don't mean shit. But anyways, the younger kids who weren't there might not be familiar with this, but VCRs were hella expensive in the early 80s. When they were new. I mean, we're talking $300, $400, $500, $600 machines at a time when minimum wage was like $2.50 an hour. Okay, you can do the an inflation adjusted for inflation calculator on your own, but let's just say $300 in 1984. I would have been 2 years old. For my parents, my mom, not having a job to speak of, my dad being a bagger at a grocery store at this time, can barely pay rent. We're on food stamps and government assistance. You really think they're going to shell out 2/3 of their paycheck to buy a machine that just plays movies? No, they're not. Now, as the decade progressed and went on, more people bought VCRs, more companies were manufacturing different varieties of VCRs at different price points and different technological levels, some more advanced than others, etc. The price came down. Now, this may or may not blow your mind, considering I was born in 82, but my older sister was born in 79, which means she's got a bigger chunk of her childhood, sans VCR memories, than I do. We got our first VCR in 1989. So, that was as a whole for the family. That was in the living room. Kids don't touch it. Mom and dad touch it. Kids just, if you rent, we'll rent you a movie, from the local Bogarts, which is where we rented movies from. You can Google Bogarts. I'm not going to tell you how to spell it, so good luck. That's where we rented movies, and we did not rent like, 6 movies at a time. It was the kids agree on a movie, me and my 2 sisters agree on a movie, and mom and dad will pick a movie for them. And like I said, this was a grocery store. This was a Bogart, so they did not have the back room, so there were no dirty movies. It was just like new releases and, popular hits. Which, again, at this point in time, the VHS cassettes, the movies themselves, were still rather expensive. They were like 40, 50, 60, 70 bucks per tape, depending on the tape and the movie and the studio and etc. So we couldn't barely afford a VCR, which, again, I don't even know how we got one. I don't know if they put it on layaway or if it was a gift from grandma or what. But we got ours in 1989. And so our first experience was not to go to Bogart's and rent movies. That was out of our budget. Our first experience with the VCR was to go to Kmart and buy a 5-pack of blank VHS tapes. Now this is where things get a little fuzzy. Dicey, if you will. Legally speaking, but it is what it is. You have to remember the R in VCR stood for recorder. The intended purpose of the technology was time shifting. We didn't have Netflix. We didn't have DVRs yet. You know, this was down the road. So, if you wanted to watch, you know, the Dallas Cowboys football game on Sunday, but the kids wanted to watch, I don't know, fucking whatever the Disney afternoon movie of the week was on ABC, let's say, I don't know, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, as an example. Well, you know, Dad wants to watch football. There's 3 kids. They want to watch Bedknobs and Broomsticks. What are you gonna do? You only got one TV in the house. You've only got one VCR. What are you gonna do? Well, what you're gonna do is you're gonna pop a tape in the VCR, program it to record whatever channel ABC is on and set the timer to record Bedknobs and Broomsticks while the kids go play, you know, I don't know, aggravation in the dining room with Mom while Dad watches the football game on Sunday, because you can't tape the football game, because if Dad goes to the grocery store or the bar, he's going to hear the score and he's going to come home and, you know, probably hit the kids or kick the dog. I don't know. Yes, my dad did those things. But anyways, so yeah, it was not majority rule. It was, you know, Dad's watching what Dad wants to watch. The kids are going to record what they want to watch on the tape and then watch it when Dad's at work. That's pretty much how it went for us. But, and the Supreme Court ruled that this was kosher. This was okay. You know, this time shifting, you know, it's okay. You know, it was built into the, you know, your right as a consumer and the license of the technology. It was like it's built into it. So you have the thumbs up from the federal government. This again coming from the U.S. to do so. Now, like I said in another video when I talked about cable TV memories, we started to get cable TV around this time, but again, it was basic cable and it was very primitive at the time. And in an effort to entice people to subscribe to their network, their premium channel, HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, later on Stars and other channels, but at that time it was just HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, would offer a free preview weekend. So it would start usually at like, you know, 10 p.m. on Friday, and it would run until like 3 a.m. Monday morning or something like that. You know, so it was like all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You know, you got HBO or Cinemax or Showtime or whatever it was for free. Free preview. And it was literally like their best stuff. It was going to show you their best movies, their best programs, their best pay-per-view events or live sporting events, whatever. Because it wanted you to say, oh, this is awesome, I want this all the time, so that you would pay the $15, $25 a month or whatever it was to add those channels to your cable package. Which, again, we could not afford to do. So what did we do? Remember what I said? Dad bought a 5-pack of blank VHS tapes. You set those suckers to SLP, which means you can get 8 hours of recording time on a single cassette. So, I don't know what 5 times 8 is, but that's, let's just say that's a lot of fucking movies. You can record a lot of fucking HBO on 5 blank VHS cassettes when you set it to SLP mode. Picture quality is going to suffer, but we didn't care. We were just like happy to have movies to watch. So we spent the entire free preview weekend recording every movie that just about that came on that whole weekend. And then we had those movies to rewatch over and over again. Now, because a 5-pack of VHS cassettes at the time was like $15, give or take, even though adjusted for inflation, still pricey. It was considerably less pricey considering the value you got than it would be to spend even $40 on a budget VHS tape, you know, like FHE, Family Home Entertainment, from the video store, you know, the Sears, Kmart, or whatever. Well, department store, video section, you know what I mean. So because of that, we did not own any store-bought movies until the mid-90s. I'm going to get to it. This is my VCR memories. So let me share my memories. So during those free preview weekends, we recorded a lot of movies. And my parents were indiscriminate. They didn't even care if it was kosher for kids to be watching this or not. They were just like, we're going to record everything. And we're just going to pop a tape in and hit record until the tape pops itself out because it's at the end of the tape. And then stick another tape in and do the same until we filled up all 5 of these tapes. So for an example, because HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, whatever, they wanted the whole family to subscribe, they just played random movies. So I know here's an example I distinctly remember. The first movie on the tape was definitely not safe for children. Fantasy film called Flesh and Blood. Lots of boobies, lots of blood and guts. The second movie on the very same tape was Adventures in Babysitting, a movie made for kids, targeted for kids. The third movie on the same video cassette was Willow, a fantasy film that was more kid-friendly than Flesh and Blood. And then the fourth movie on the video cassette was this adult comedy called In and Out in Beverly Hills, or Down and Out in Beverly Hills. So that's one example. Just random movies. This is how we got, and we didn't even pick we didn't even just like record movies we wanted to watch. We just recorded whatever came on HBO during this weekend. So we got like all kinds of weird shit. This is how we got movies like Big Business, Crocodile Dundee, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when that came on, The Terminator, when it came on, so many movies. Maximum Overdrive, I talked about it 100 times. This was how we got Maximum Overdrive. It was like, hey, there's a movie coming on HBO for the weekend. All right, pop a tape in, set it to SLP, hit record. Let's see what Maximum Overdrive is. Let's find out together as a family if this is appropriate for kids or not. Spoilers, it was not. And I'm looking at you, Steamroller, Baseball Field. Enough said. Traumatizing. But this is how we got movies. Now, my parents were not rich. They were not middle class. They were poor. So we did not buy a 5-pack of VHS tapes every payday because we couldn't afford it. And HBO didn't give us a free weekend every month. It was like, maybe you got 2 or 3 free weekends a year. So most of the time, the rest of the year, whenever we did get additional three packs because they were less expensive, the 5-pack was the best bundle, was the best value. You know, it was a little bit more expensive than the 3-pack, but it was the best value. You know, so it was like pay a little bit more for the 5 tapes. You know, but then we can fill those motherfuckers up. But like I said, in the off-season, when the premium channels weren't giving us a free weekend, we were just recording the, you know, the ABC, Disney, what was it called? The Wonderful World of Disney or whatever the CBS weekend movie was, because every weekend there was always a movie on Friday night after the primetime lineup went off the air and the late night show went off the air. There was a movie. There was usually a movie or something on Saturday and Saturday evening, and then there was usually movies throughout the day on Sunday. And, you know, like I said, Dad watched football, but he didn't watch football unless it was the playoffs. So, you know, before the playoffs rolled around, and unless the Green Bay Packers were in the playoffs, which if they weren't, then, you know, we didn't care, because my dad was a Packers man. So basically, unless the Packers were playing, he wasn't watching football. So Sundays were, you know, let's just record whatever's on TV. The rest of the time, it was, you know, we watched TV as a family, you know, the sitcoms or whatever came on TV during prime time. You know, we sat down at the table. We had a little TV in the kitchen so we could watch television while we ate. Or sometimes it was a treat, but sometimes we got to eat in the living room and watch TV on the big TV. The 19-inch gigantic monster of a TV, color TV we had in the living room. I know, 19 whole inches. What are you going to do? That's too much TV. That's a lot of TV. I know, I'm being facetious, but no, in 1987, 88, etc., that was a big TV, you know. And it was one of those big console TVs, which I later found out my parents bought through a rent-to-own type situation, which was how we ended up getting other electronics devices. Maybe how we got the VCR, I don't know. I'm not 100%. I know that's how we got our microwave, our first microwave, because Mom made a big deal out of it. You can't blow this thing up because it's not paid for. She always told us it's not paid for. By the way, we did blow it up. I know she said don't put metal in the microwave, but I didn't think tinfoil was metal when I was 8 years old. So, oops. You cook a baked potato in the oven, you wrap it up in tinfoil, you stick it in the oven, and you wait 3 hours, and then you have a baked potato. So, you're going to put it in the microwave for 4 minutes and get a baked potato. You're going to wrap it up in the tinfoil. Oops. Kaboom. Kitchen's on fire. Firemen are out in the yard, and I'm getting my ass whooped. But it is what it is. It happens. But anyway, sidebar. Getting back to VCRs. Now, as the technology progressed, as the market grew, more people bought VCRs, more people bought pre-recorded tapes, Blockbuster had more rentals going on, etc., etc. The cost of movies came down. So, we started buying pre-recorded video cassettes at the video rental store from the pre-owned tape bin around, I would say, 91, 92. Around there. And I would say it was around there because I know the very first pre-recorded videotape, it was a used pre-owned videotape we bought, was Sands of Iwo Jima, the colorized version, starring John Wayne. And this was also when we got we were buying them from video stores, you know, pre-recorded tapes that, you know, they would buy like 200 copies when it was a new release, and then 6 to 9 months later or whatever, when people weren't renting it in as big numbers, you know, they were selling off their excess inventory. So that's how we got, like, some of the Disney movies we got at the time, Aladdin, Cinderella, and I know that's how we got the 1990 TMNT film, New Line Cinema, which was distributed on VHS by FHE, by the way. Remember I mentioned them? So that was a budget tape anyways. I know that's how we got Mrs. Doubtfire and other movies. The first time we went into Kmart Because remember, we grew up, there were no Walmarts where we grew up. Walmart would come later, much later. I remember the first time we were at Kmart and Mom and Dad saw a movie on VHS that was affordable, brand new. And I'm saying affordable because at this point, Dad has a better job. Mom has a full-time job now. You know, so we can actually buy nicer things than we could previously. And also the price came down finally. The very first new release we bought brand new in stores, and it was on the new release aisle. Brand new, $19.95, which to us was like, it was a miracle that you could get a movie on VHS for that low. And it was like a brand new, you know, not a pre-rented that somebody had watched 100 times and you know, were taking a chance if it even still worked. Or something we recorded off the air ourselves. And this was the movie Twister. Now, Twister was a big deal for us. We grew up in Kansas. We went and saw Twister opening night as a family. Me, Mom, Dad, my sisters, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. All of us as a family because, you know, we lived in Tornado Alley. So this was a big deal. Part of Twister took place in Kansas. So yes, we were there to see. I know that town, or I've been on that highway. You know, that's what we were there for. That, and also, yeah, tornadoes are a thing. I've talked about that in a previous video where I talked about tornadoes and thunderstorms. Go watch it when you're done with this one. So, this movie was important to our family. It was important enough to buy it brand new in the shrink wrap at Kmart. Now, in the following years, starting in 1996, something big happened, and that was DVD came on the scene. So going forward, DVDs were the big, expensive, we can't afford product, and VHS tapes were coming down in price. So from 96 on until about 2000, I would say 2005, 2006, so for the next 10 years, we were finally in a position where we were making more money and the cost came down. We could finally start buying more VHS tapes. Now, throughout this whole period, from when we got the VCR till now, which, by the way, we were on our second VCR as a family at this point. Mom and Dad had bought a second one for the living room. And then the first one, which had been the living room VCR, they gave to my sisters to keep in their bedroom. Now, this was only fair because, remember, I'm transgender, so at the time I was male presenting, so I didn't share a bedroom with my sisters. It wouldn't have been appropriate. So my sisters got the VCR and I got the video games. I got to keep the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Genesis in my bedroom. Now, the NES was an all-kids gift. We had to share, but I kept it in my room. The Genesis was mine. I didn't have to share it. It was a birthday present. But I did share it with my sisters because I was a nice sibling, I'll say. So, yeah. We finally had 2 VCRs in the house. And then eventually we would get a third one. I would get my very own VCR in 2004, which was a VCR DVD combo player, which was my first VCR that was mine. That first VCR that we got back in 1989, I couldn't tell you what brand it was. I know it was black, and it had a remote control that had a play button that was kind of like a video game controller. It was this round button in the middle of the controller, in the middle of the remote control. The up was play, the down was stop, the left was rewind, and the right was fast forward. That's all I remember. The second VCR, the one that Mom and Dad got, I also couldn't tell you what brand it was because it wasn't mine. It was just the one that we, you know... Again, it was off limits to the kids. We couldn't, like, program it or record on it, but if we rented movies and it was, like, your turn to watch a movie, you could put the tape in, hit play on the front of the machine. This was one of those late 90s silver models, because electronics had become silver by this point. The one I got, I do remember the specifics because it was mine. It was sitting in my bedroom. And it was an RCA VCR, VHS, or DVD, VHS, VCR combo player. And it was really weird because I think RCA was... No, it wasn't RCA. It was JVC. And I remember that because my first DVD player was an RCA, but my first VCR was the JVC. Now, I have to backtrack for a second. I had a job. Obviously, I was an adult at this point. And so I bought a DVD player for myself. Christmas, or well, my birthday actually, with my birthday money. In 2002, I had my own DVD player. So I was starting to buy DVDs, but they were still expensive at the time. So, you know, we were still buying movies on VHS at the time. The DVD VCR combo player I got was a Christmas present 2 years later, and that was the JVC. The DVD player I had was the RCA. But anyways, I got confused for a second. But anyways, the DVD player was black. The VCR DVD combo player was the silver. And that's all I remember. Even though this machine was technically a VCR, I used it primarily as a DVD player. Which again, it was one of those... at first, I was confused why my parents bought me this machine in 2004, because I was like, I already have a DVD player and I don't need a VCR at this point. But my mom was like, no, we want you to have this, you know, we thought of you because we know you like movies, and I still had a bookshelf full of VHS tapes, and they were giving me some of their VHS tapes because they were likewise replacing them with DVDs. So it was like, all right, more movies to watch, I guess. So I did, you know, keep this combo player, and I sold the standalone DVD player so I could have money to buy more DVDs, obviously, for a couple of years. And then eventually I ended up selling it at a yard sale, and I replaced it with a 5-disc DVD changer, which was excessive, but I wanted it. I don't even know why they made a 5-disc DVD changer. Now, I'm not 100% what brand it was. I'm going to say probably JVC or Sony, but it could have been a Panasonic. It could have been a Magnavox. Could have been a Philips. I couldn't tell you. I don't remember. Because I didn't keep it for very long because it broke, and I sold it for nothing at a yard sale, and I didn't tell the guy that it broke. I was just like, hey, $5. And he's like, awesome. That's a good price. And I was like, haha, give me the $5. Get that piece of plastic out of my house. I was, you know, whatever. It was a yard sale, you know. Anyways, maybe he could fix it. I don't know. I don't know who he is. Anyways, I know that's sort of a tangent because that's a DVD player. That's not a VCR. But anyways, that would not be the last VCR I would buy. When I was in college, I was studying broadcasting, and I was taking classes in, you know, film history and television history, broadcast history, you know, journalism. And I was taking classes in video editing and production and stuff like that, you know, cinematography and stuff like that. So I got obsessed, and I've talked about some of this previously with my DJ hustle on a side business that I had until I opened up a record studio and everything. And then that would end up going out of business. But anyways, what I'm getting at is over the years, I developed a fascination with video technology. And so in 2010, 2011, I started collecting old video players. So I bought my first Betamax VCR. I bought a working, I don't remember what brand it was, but an actual VHS VCR for my VHS tapes. I bought a Laserdisc player. I bought, So much, I can't even remember it all. But anyways, I was like buying shit all the time. That's when I bought my CDI. And I bought it not for the video games, but because for me it was a video CD player. And I bought it to play video CDs on. Anyways, that's when I became obsessed with home media stuff, so I started buying all kinds of random shit. Eventually, I ended up selling all that stuff, you know, after I got out of college, and I realized, oh shit, now I gotta get a job and pay bills. Oops. So I ended up selling all that shit, and that was the second to last VCR I ever owned. When I was living in Dallas, 2 years ago, I bought a VCR at a Goodwill, took it home, hooked it up, plugged it in, popped a tape in, didn't work. Tried a few other tapes, looked at some online articles, you know, troubleshooting, etc., do-it-yourself fixes, couldn't get it to work, and I basically left it, you know, in the pile of trash in Texas when I moved to Idaho last summer. That was the last VCR I've ever owned. And up to this point, that's pretty much the end of the road for me for VCR memories. At this point in time, I have a PlayStation 4 that plays Blu-rays and DVDs. I have a portable Blu-ray, not portable, but USB Blu-ray drive that I can hook up to my laptop. I have a laptop that I watch movies on, you know, Tubi, etc., streaming, etc. So I don't really have a use or need for a VCR at this point in time. So those are my VCR, my personal VCR memories. The first video cassette that I ever owned that belonged to me, that I got, that was mine, it was a present, was the aforementioned 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. The last VHS tape I ever bought was a copy of The Terminator I got at a antique store of all places. I know, holy shit. In Sherman, Texas. No, Denison, Texas. And that would have been 2019, 2018, was the last VHS tape I bought. Which, by the way, I no longer have any of VHS. I left all my VHS tapes on the shelf in the kitchen in Dallas, so they're gone. So that's it. That's my VCR memories. Stay cool.